Before we do the car, here's a demonstration on how we treat this oxidized aluminum. I've got a junkyard strip here and I've taped off a section. What you do is wet sand the surface oxidation off the strip first. And then the first time around, we load the pad by inverting the bottle about 8 or 10 times. That's to initially load the pad. You don't want too much in there, you don't want too little. And always put the cap back on. Then we do a continuous stroke. You can actually scrub this back and forth if you find areas that are too wet and runny. You can go back over them for a minute or so, but because it dries fairly slowly. And then in this case, we dry between coats. So we recommend you put 2 coats of this on when you're doing the car. So here's the end result. You can see the before and after. Here's the car we're going to do today. These little 3 Series cars seem to oxidize pretty quickly. There's a before and after right in the same strip. First thing we do is tape off around the strips. It's not because this coating is bad for the paint or anything. It will not harm your paint, but this will allow you to sand freely on the strips and not dull your paint. This model I like to put a little masking tape around this bend in the aluminum because it seems to oxidize more there and we end up doing more sanding. So again, it's to protect you from dulling your paint. I take 2 sections of a brawny towel, fold them like this, and initially wet the pad, moderately. Wet the cloth and do a continuous wipe from one section of the strip to the other end. You want to wipe off any surface grit. If you sand that grit in there, you can get little scratches in your aluminum which you're not able to get out. Then we get a fresh towel and wet it more thoroughly and then begin wet sanding. As you do this, you'll see a white kind of a slurry come up. It's the surface oxidation mixing with the water. And when that subsides to almost nothing, that's when you've sanded enough. Here you can see that little slurry or the powder that is formed when you reduce the amount of surface oxidation. So we'll continue on and sand this particular model. The newer models really don't need a lot of surface sanding. The older models, 15-year-old cars, 20-year-old cars, lots of times you have to sand more thoroughly to get a good result. Once you're through with that, you wipe the surface powder off and then load the pad. As we've previously illustrated here, you invert that bottle about 8 or 10 times initially to load the pad. Always put the top back on. When you least expect it, you'll knock it over. That's what I do. And then do a continuous stroke from the beginning to the end of each section of the strips. This particular formula you can go back over if you found that it's running or it's too dry. You can go back over it. As you can see, this pad can be turned around corners. This is an omnidirectional kind of a pad. On the next section, I invert the bottle, put 3 more applications or dots on there, and continue on. And like I said before, we're going to want to dry this thoroughly with a hairdryer or carefully with a heat gun between each coat. We recommend 2 coats. And that's it. This is the before picture. And this is what it looks like after we're finished. This coating too lasts at least a couple of years without any kind of special care. And so you'll find that this really works well on most cars. If you have any questions, call us at 678-978-6995.